Harry S. Truman, the best president in American history.
He was the first of 3 children. After high school, he worked multiple jobs such as a timekeeper for a railroad construction company and then at 2 separate banks as a bank keeper. He withdrew from law school. He soon joined the National Guard. Truman was 2 years older than the age limit. He was 33 years old, and he cheated on the eye chart by memorizing it just to fight for his country.
After returning from the war in 1919, he married Elizabeth Wallace.
In 1922, he was elected district judge in Jackson County, Missouri. In 1926, he won the elections county presiding judge and was reelected in 1930. In 1934, he was elected to U.S. Senate. He supported New Deal programs.
1941 to 1944, Truman was the head of the Senate Special.
Truman was the vice president under Franklin Delano Roosevelt until he died in 1945. Then Truman became president. Roosevelt had kept Truman in the dark about most of the war plans for World War II. During his initial months in office, the war in Europe ended when Allies accepted Nazi surrender on May 8th. Truman took a part of the Potsdam Conference to discuss post-war treatment of Germany with Great Britain and Winston Churchill and the Soviet Union and Stalin.
He ended the war with Japan by dropping 2 atomic bombs.
Later, Truman was for desegregation and the fair rights of all people and therefore ordered an executive order on July 26, 1948 in order to desegregate armed forces. With this, the executive order stated that there shall be equality of treatment and opportunity of all peoples in the armed forces without regard to race, color, religion, or national origin. As well as this, Harry S. Truman created the Truman Doctrine in order to establish that the United States would provide political, military, and economic assistance to all democratic nations under threat from external or internal authoritarian forces. Truman also sent troops to South Korea during the Korean conflict, and during his presidency, he outlived the Israel and Palestinian recognition. Also, Truman's second inauguration was the first to be televised and seen by a wider range of people. Truman also created NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, as a military alliance between Europe and North America after World War II.
In 1949, Truman announced his domestic policy initiative, the Fair Deal Program. He built this idea off of Roosevelt's New Deal. It included universal health care, an increase in minimum wage, more funding for education, and a guarantee for equal rights under the law for all citizens. The program was a mixed success. In 1948, racial discrimination was banned in federal government hiring practices, the military was desegregated, and the minimum wage had gone up. In March of 1952, Truman announced that he would not run for re-election. After retiring from presidency, Truman had returned to Independence, Missouri, where he wrote his memoirs, oversaw the construction of the Presidential Library, and took long walks. He died on December 26, 1972, and was buried next to Bess in the courtyard of Truman Library.
Why you shouldn't trust George Washington, a.k.a. the real Benedict Arnold.
Washington acquired his first slaves when he was only 11 years old. After marrying Martha, Washington's number of slaves increased drastically. Washington owned over 300 slaves by the time he died.
Washington was also known for using harsh treatment such as whippings and overworking of the slaves, as well as selling slaves to buyers from the West Indies, guaranteeing that families would never be together again. Washington had a zero tolerance for any type of slave uprisings and signed the Fugitive Slave Act in 1793.
Did you know that originally George Washington fought for the British? When he was 21, Washington led British forces in a battle against France in Ohio. He then lost, sparking the 7 Years' War. Let me repeat, Washington fought for Britain before fighting against Britain. Washington was the original Benedict Arnold. He also lost way more battles than he won in his lifetime. Truman, however, won one of the greatest wars in all of world history for America and our allies.
Truman's decision to end World War II saved more lives than it took, American and Japanese. The war had been going on for several years, and Truman did not want it to prolong. The decision was strictly a military one, and it was a huge executive decision. Truman ended the most destructive war in the world. His decision also warned the Soviet Union to be aware of the power that America had.